There's a hidden truth in trading that most people never discover, not because it's too complex, but because it's too simple to believe. Every trader searches for the perfect entry, the flawless setup, the magic indicator that never fails. Yet the traders who last, the ones who survive every market cycle and walk away wealthy, don't rely on prediction. They rely on precision. And that precision begins with one principle: position sizing. Position sizing is the quiet foundation of consistency. It's not about how much you can make. It's about how much you're willing to risk without emotional interference. Most traders think risk is just a percentage of their capital, maybe 1 or 2% per trade, but that's not the real formula. That's just arithmetic. The real formula is psychological. It determines how much your mind can tolerate losing before fear starts trading for you. The problem is most traders never define that number. They set random lot sizes, adjust them based on confidence, and justify it with phrases like this: "One looks good," or "the market feels strong." That emotional inconsistency is the reason they lose, because the market doesn't reward hope, it rewards discipline. The secret isn't hidden in a spreadsheet. It's in the trader's relationship with uncertainty. When you can size your position so that any outcome feels acceptable, you become immune to fear. You stop needing the market to behave a certain way. And that's when you start trading objectively. Imagine this: two traders, same entry, same exit, same profit potential. One risks too much and watches every tick with anxiety. The other risks just enough to stay calm. The second trader can follow the plan, execute cleanly, and repeat the process. Over time, that emotional stability compounds faster than profits ever could, because trading is not a game of prediction. It's a game of probability. And probability only rewards those who can think clearly under pressure. The secret position sizing formula isn't about maximizing returns. It's about minimizing emotional noise. It's the ratio between your risk tolerance and your mental comfort zone. It's the bridge between knowledge and execution. Once you learn how to calculate not just what your account can afford to lose, but what your mind can handle losing, your entire trading identity changes. You stop identifying with wins or losses. You start thinking in probabilities, not possibilities. You realize that every trade is just one of 1,000 opportunities to express an edge, not a life or death decision. When your position size fits your psychological comfort, the market can no longer control you. You've taken your power back. That's the real secret. It's not the formula that changes your trading. It's what the formula represents: control, clarity, confidence. When you master position sizing, you don't just manage money, you manage yourself. And once you can do that, consistency stops being a dream and becomes your default state. Position sizing defines consistency, not prediction. This idea stands as one of the most misunderstood truths in trading. Most traders spend years trying to perfect the art of prediction, searching for the holy grail setup, the one indicator that will tell them when to buy and when to sell. They convince themselves that consistency comes from accuracy. But in the real world of trading, accuracy means almost nothing without proper size control. You can be right half the time and still make a fortune, or you can be right 90% of the time and end up broke. The difference lies not in how often you win, but in how much you lose when you're wrong. Position sizing is the mechanism that separates professional traders from emotional gamblers. It transforms trading from a random emotional experience into a structured probability game. Without it, no amount of skill or knowledge can protect you from the inevitable swings of the market. The irony is that many traders already know this concept intellectually, but they fail to live it in execution. They read about risk management, they nod in agreement, and then they open a position that's just slightly bigger than it should be because the setup looks too good, or because they feel they need to make up for a previous loss. In that moment, they're no longer trading a system, they're trading their emotions. Consistency doesn't come from predicting what the market will do next. It comes from knowing exactly what you will do next. Regardless of what the market does, position sizing is the tool that gives you that certainty. It defines the boundaries within which you can act freely without fear or hesitation. It turns chaos into clarity. When your position size is correct, you can lose 5 trades in a row and still think clearly enough to take the 6th one without hesitation. When your size is too large, a single losing trade can shake your confidence, distort your perception, and cause you to deviate from your edge. Traders often confuse confidence with conviction. They believe that when they feel confident about a trade, it justifies taking on more risk, but confidence in a trade setup is meaningless because every outcome is uncertain. The only confidence that matters is confidence in your ability to follow your process. No matter what happens, position sizing is what allows that kind of confidence to exist. It's the foundation of emotional equilibrium. It ensures that no single trade has the power to break your focus or influence your next decision. Consider the logic behind casinos. They don't care which customer wins or loses in the short term. They have a mathematical edge, and they apply that edge over thousands of outcomes. The reason they always win in the long run isn't because they predict who will roll a 7. It's because they understand probability and bet size management. They know that as long as they stay within their parameters, the law of large numbers will work in their favor. The trader who masters position sizing operates the same way. Each trade is just one iteration of a probability model. The outcome of any single trade doesn't matter because the size of each bet ensures that the aggregate results align with the expected edge. This is why consistency is impossible without strict control over size. If you change your position size based on emotion, feeling more confident after a few wins or desperate after a loss, you destroy the statistical stability of your system. You convert what should be a predictable series of outcomes into chaos. Even if your strategy has an edge, you won't experience it because your size fluctuations distort the results. You might win big one week and lose everything the next, not because the system failed, but because you failed to respect the formula of risk. Every professional trader knows that losses are not just inevitable, they're necessary. They're the cost of doing business. What matters is not the frequency of losses, but their size relative to your capital and psychology. A loss that's too large doesn't just reduce your account balance, it reduces your mental capital. It plants fear, hesitation, and self-doubt, which then infect your future trades. By keeping each loss small and predefined, position sizing preserves your most valuable trading resource, your ability to think objectively. Traders who ignore position sizing often experience wild emotional swings that mirror the volatility of their results. When they win, they feel euphoric and overconfident, increasing size recklessly. When they lose, they feel defeated and scared, cutting size too much or avoiding trades altogether. These emotional pendulum swings destroy consistency. But with disciplined position sizing, emotions flatten out. The highs aren't too high, and the lows aren't too low. You become emotionally neutral, capable of executing your plan with mechanical precision. What makes position sizing so powerful is that it removes the illusion of control over the market and replaces it with real control over yourself. You can't control what the market does, but you can control how much you risk, how much you stand to lose, and how long you can stay in the game. That's the essence of consistency. It's not about forcing the market to behave in a way that favors you. It's about structuring your behavior so that no market behavior can destroy you. Traders often think of position sizing as a mathematical decision, 1%, 2%, maybe 3% risk per trade, but the numbers themselves mean nothing unless they fit your psychological threshold. The correct position size is the one that allows you to remain calm and rational, even when the trade moves against you. It's not about maximizing profits, it's about minimizing psychological disruption. Because once fear enters the equation, you stop trading probabilities and start trading your emotions. Imagine being in a trade and watching it move slightly against you. If your size is too big, every tick feels like a personal attack. Your heartbeat rises, your palms sweat, and your objectivity vanishes. You start seeing what you want to see instead of what's actually there. You move stops, you exit too early, you re-enter impulsively, all because your size has triggered your emotional survival instinct. But if your position is appropriately sized, that same movement means nothing. You can observe it without reacting. You can let the market unfold and execute your plan as intended. That detachment is what produces consistent results. The great paradox of trading is that the less you try to control the market, the more control you gain over your results. Position sizing is the mechanism that makes that possible. It transforms trading from a gamble into a process. It gives structure to uncertainty. It doesn't guarantee profits, but it guarantees survival. And survival is the prerequisite for success. Every consistent trader knows that the goal is not to avoid losses, but to manage them so that they never threaten the bigger picture. When you truly understand this, your perspective on trading shifts completely. You stop thinking in terms of single trades and start thinking in terms of series. You no longer care whether the next trade wins or loses because your position size ensures that either outcome fits comfortably within your plan. That mindset is what produces the calm, steady consistency that separates professionals from everyone else. Prediction fades away as the goal. What remains is precision, patience, and the mastery of controlled exposure. And through that mastery, consistency becomes inevitable. Risk must align with emotional tolerance, not just account balance. This truth defines the invisible boundary between technical risk management and true trading mastery. Most traders calculate risk mechanically. They decide to risk 1 or 2% of their account on every trade, believing that a fixed percentage guarantees safety. But numbers alone don't define risk. Real risk lives inside the trader's mind. It's not about what you can afford to lose mathematically. It's about what you can handle losing emotionally without losing focus, objectivity, or confidence in your strategy. When those two forms of risk, financial and psychological, are misaligned, consistency becomes impossible. Every trader has a different threshold for pain. For one person, losing $100 might feel like nothing more than the cost of doing business. For another, it might trigger a wave of panic, frustration, or anger. The difference doesn't come from the amount of money itself. It comes from how much emotional significance that money carries. The human brain doesn't process losses rationally. It reacts to them as threats. When a trader risks more than they can emotionally tolerate, the body enters a state of stress that clouds judgment, tightens focus, and makes rational decision-making almost impossible. The trader starts reacting, not thinking. The moment that happens, the market gains control. Aligning risk with emotional tolerance means understanding your personal comfort zone so deeply that no single loss has the power to shake your state of mind. It means creating a structure that allows you to lose gracefully, because in trading, you will lose. Regularly, repeatedly, and unpredictably. There's no avoiding it. The only choice you have is how much those losses will affect you. When your position size and total risk are small enough to keep you emotionally neutral, every trade becomes just another expression of your edge. You stop seeing losses as failures and start seeing them as data. You no longer feel the need to make back what you lost because the loss itself no longer represents pain. It represents feedback. Most traders underestimate how fragile their emotional balance is when real money is on the line. They backtest perfectly, plan perfectly, even execute perfectly, until real capital enters the equation. Suddenly, hesitation appears where there was once confidence, doubt replaces discipline, and impatience replaces patience. The issue isn't that the system stopped working. It's that the trader's emotional capacity was exceeded by the amount at risk. When the emotional brain takes control, logic fades. A trader might know that moving a stop loss makes no sense, but fear overrides that knowledge. In that moment, it doesn't matter how strong their strategy is. Their emotions are trading for them. A trader who risks within their emotional tolerance remains calm enough to follow through on their plan no matter what happens. That's the essence of alignment. It's not about how much you can make. It's about how much psychological stability you can maintain. This stability is what allows consistency to exist, because consistency in behavior creates consistency in results. You cannot trade consistently while feeling inconsistent inside. The smallest bit of emotional discomfort compounds into hesitation, overreaction, and decision fatigue. It's important to understand that emotional tolerance isn't fixed. It evolves with experience, confidence, and financial growth. A beginner might struggle to risk even $50 per trade without feeling tension, while a professional can easily handle $5,000. What changes isn't their mathematical skill, it's their psychological conditioning. They've learned to separate self-worth from outcomes. They've built emotional resilience through exposure, repetition, and time. The alignment between their financial risk and emotional tolerance gradually increases until the two are in sync. This process can't be rushed. It's built through deliberate awareness and incremental exposure to uncertainty. Many traders mistakenly believe they can toughen up by risking more than they're comfortable with. They convince themselves that discomfort equals growth. But emotional tolerance doesn't expand through force. It expands through gradual adaptation. Overexposing yourself to risk before you're ready doesn't make you stronger. It makes you reactive. It conditions your mind to associate trading with stress, fear, and loss of control. In contrast, when you trade within your comfort zone, you build confidence through repetition. Each small controlled experience reinforces the belief that you can handle the process. Over time, that belief compounds. allowing you to scale up naturally without disrupting your emotional equilibrium. One of the biggest misconceptions in trading is that risk management is purely logical. It's not. It's emotional engineering disguised as mathematics. The math gives structure, but the emotion gives truth. You might calculate that risking 2% per trade is safe, but if losing 2% makes you second guess your system, it's not safe for you. True safety lies in what you can experience without losing mental clarity. When your emotions remain stable, your decisions remain consistent. When your emotions fluctuate, your system breaks down. This alignment also explains why traders with small accounts often perform worse when they suddenly receive large capital. The psychological load increases faster than their emotional readiness. Suddenly, the same 1% risk that felt manageable before now represents thousands of dollars. The math hasn't changed, but the emotional significance has. That pressure triggers subtle mental shifts. Exits become premature, stops widen, and trades are avoided altogether. It's not the money that changed, it's the emotional weight attached to it. The only way to prevent that breakdown is by growing your emotional tolerance in parallel with your capital. Aligning risk with emotional tolerance also means being brutally honest with yourself about how much discomfort you can handle. Many traders lie to themselves in the name of ambition. They say, I'm fine risking more, I can handle it. But trading exposes truth faster than any other profession. If your stomach tightens when you enter a trade, if you check the chart every few seconds, or if you can't sleep after a loss, your risk is too high. That physical and emotional tension is a direct signal from your nervous system that you've crossed your threshold. Reducing size until that tension disappears is not weakness, it's wisdom. The calm state you achieve by doing so is what allows you to see clearly and act rationally. This principle applies not only to losses but also to gains. Excessive profit can be just as destabilizing as excessive loss. If a win feels overwhelmingly exciting or euphoric, it means the amount at risk carried too much emotional weight. That euphoria leads to overconfidence, which in turn leads to recklessness. The best traders aim for emotional neutrality in both directions. Their goal is not to feel nothing, but to feel stable. A small, consistent emotional response allows them to operate in the zone. Focused, detached, and fully present when risk and emotional tolerance align, the trader reaches a state of flow where decisions are effortless. The market becomes just data, not danger. Each trade becomes a neutral expression of probabilities, not a battle for survival. There's no need for perfection, no urge to force results, no pressure to prove anything. The mind is calm, the body is relaxed, and execution becomes fluid. That alignment transforms trading from an emotional roller coaster into a process of quiet precision. This alignment also acts as the ultimate feedback loop. When you're trading within your tolerance, your emotions become your internal performance indicator. You can sense immediately when something feels off, not because of what the market is doing, but because of what your body is telling you. Anxiety, tension, or excitement become signals, not obstacles. They reveal when your risk exposure is mismatched with your comfort level, allowing you to adjust before damage occurs. This feedback creates self-awareness, and self-awareness creates mastery. The deeper truth behind this keynote is that trading is not about conquering the market. It's about managing the relationship between your capital and your consciousness. The more aligned those two are, the more consistent your behavior becomes, and the more consistent your behavior, the more predictable your long-term results. Small, controlled losses protect clarity and discipline. Every trader enters the market with the same dream, to win big, to find that one perfect trade that changes everything. But in the reality of trading, survival comes not from the magnitude of your wins, but from the management of your losses. Small, controlled losses are not signs of failure. They are the foundation of longevity. They act as the insurance policy for your mental stability, your confidence, and your capacity to execute objectively. The trader who learns to take small losses without emotional resistance builds a mindset that thrives in uncertainty, while the trader who avoids losses at all costs eventually destroys both capital and confidence. Losses are unavoidable. The market doesn't owe anyone a profit, and it doesn't reward prediction. It rewards discipline. The key lies not in eliminating losses, but in defining them before they happen and accepting them as a normal cost of doing business. When losses are small and controlled, they don't damage the trader's psyche. They don't trigger panic, denial, or revenge behavior. They become routine, like paying rent or maintenance on a business. This acceptance creates mental space, and that space is what allows clarity to exist. Without that space, emotions flood in and trading decisions become reactive instead of strategic. Most traders lose clarity the moment they experience an unplanned loss. The shock of losing more than expected disrupts their composure. Suddenly, they start questioning their strategy, doubting their edge, or looking for a new system altogether. This constant cycle of system hopping and emotional overreaction is rooted in one thing: the refusal to control the size of losses. When a loss exceeds your predefined limit, it doesn't just hurt your account, it shatters your sense of control. And once that control is gone, every decision that follows is contaminated by fear or desperation. Small losses preserve that control. They act as psychological checkpoints, reminding you that your trading plan is still intact, that you are still in charge of the process. They reaffirm that your identity as a trader is not defined by one trade, one day, or one outcome. This creates a mental environment where you can think clearly even during periods of drawdown. A trader who accepts small losses is free from the emotional noise that clouds judgment. They can look at charts, data, and probabilities without personal bias because they no longer view a loss as a personal failure. It's simply information. Clarity in trading is the ability to see what the market is showing without distortion. But clarity can't exist when emotions dominate your perception. Fear of loss distorts clarity faster than anything else. It causes traders to exit trades too early, hesitate on valid setups, or hold losing positions in the hope that they'll turn around. These are not strategic decisions, they're survival responses. When the emotional brain perceives a threat, logic shuts down. The only way to prevent that shutdown is to reduce the emotional impact of loss by keeping it small enough to be emotionally neutral. Discipline grows out of clarity. When you can see objectively, you can act systematically. You follow your plan not because you're forcing yourself to, but because there's no internal resistance left. The moment losses become small enough to feel manageable, discipline stops being an effort and becomes a habit. You no longer need to control yourself to follow the rules. You simply follow them because they make sense. This natural discipline is the hallmark of professional traders. They're not disciplined because they're emotionless. They're disciplined because their emotions no longer interfere with execution. Large losses, on the other hand, destroy discipline faster than any other factor. They create emotional residue that lingers far beyond the trade itself. A big loss can make you fearful of taking the next opportunity or desperate to recover immediately. Either reaction leads to impulsive behavior. You may enter trades that don't fit your edge or exit too early just to lock in small profits. This constant swing between fear and greed erodes structure. And once structure is lost, so is consistency. Controlled losses prevent this erosion by acting as small doses of emotional exposure. Each small, accepted loss trains your mind to remain calm under pressure. Over time, this builds resilience, the ability to experience uncertainty without panic. The best traders understand that small losses are not setbacks, they are progress markers. Each loss provides feedback about your edge, your timing, or your execution. If you risk small, you can learn without being punished heavily. The information you gather from these controlled losses refines your process. You start seeing patterns not just in the market, but in your own behavior. You learn what triggers hesitation, what causes overtrading, and what market conditions your strategy thrives in. This continuous loop of feedback and adjustment is what turns an average trader into a consistent one. One of the most dangerous mindsets in trading is the avoidance of loss. Many traders hold on to losing trades because they can't bear the thought of being wrong. They rationalize, hope, and adjust stops until a small loss becomes catastrophic. This behavior stems from ego, the need to be right. But in trading, being right is irrelevant. What matters is being profitable. Accepting small losses means accepting that you don't control the market. You only control your actions. This humility is what keeps traders alive long enough to benefit from probability. Controlled losses also preserve your most valuable asset, mental energy. Every emotional outburst, every sleepless night after a big loss drains focus and creativity. When you keep losses small, your emotional recovery time is almost instantaneous. You can reset and move on to the next trade without mental fatigue. This mental freshness is crucial because trading requires constant decision-making under uncertainty. The more emotionally drained you are, the more errors you make. Small losses act like emotional micro-recoveries, preventing burnout and preserving focus. The real purpose of limiting losses is not just to protect your account balance, it's to protect your decision-making ability. When you know that any outcome will have only a minor financial impact, your mind remains clear. You can think in terms of probabilities rather than possibilities. You can take trades objectively without hesitation. The clarity that comes from this state of mind is what allows consistent traders to execute flawlessly, even in volatile conditions. The difference between a professional and an amateur is not that one never loses, it's that one never allows a loss to exceed the threshold of clarity. Professionals understand that the goal is not to avoid pain, but to contain it. By doing so, they maintain emotional equilibrium. They don't need to force discipline, they simply follow their plan because it's the only thing that makes sense within their controlled environment. The paradox of trading is that the less you fight against losses, the less damage they do. Resisting them gives them power. Accepting them dissolves their influence. Each small controlled loss is a reminder that you're playing a long-term game, one built on probabilities, not perfection. It reinforces the belief that success doesn't come from avoiding losing trades, but from mastering the art of managing them. Through that mastery, clarity sharpens, discipline strengthens, and the trader evolves from reacting to leading, calm, focused, and consistently in control of the process rather than the outcome. Emotional neutrality creates long-term profitability. In trading, emotions are both inevitable and dangerous. They are natural responses to uncertainty, reward, and risk, yet they are also the primary reason why most traders fail. Every chart movement triggers a subtle emotional reaction. Hope when the market moves in your favor, fear when it doesn't, excitement after a win, frustration after a loss. These emotions cloud judgment, distort perception, and sabotage consistency. The trader who learns to operate in emotional neutrality, the state where results no longer dictate emotional states, unlocks the true potential of long-term profitability. Emotional neutrality doesn't mean the absence of feeling, it means freedom from emotional influence. It's the ability to observe the market without attachment, to make decisions without internal bias, and to execute the plan without hesitation or resistance. Most traders believe they can control emotions through willpower, but that's not how the brain works. Emotions can't be suppressed. They can only be managed through structure, perspective, and repetition. Neutrality is the byproduct of a well-defined process and proper risk alignment, not a forced state of calm. Profitability in trading is never a result of intensity. It's a result of stability. The market doesn't reward passion or excitement. It rewards consistency and objectivity. When emotions fluctuate wildly between euphoria and despair, trading behavior becomes erratic. One day you follow your plan perfectly, the next day you abandon it completely. That inconsistency erases any statistical edge your strategy might have. Emotional neutrality smooths that volatility. It keeps your decision-making process uniform, allowing probabilities to express themselves over time without interference. Traders often chase emotional highs unconsciously. The rush of a big win feels intoxicating, and that feeling becomes addictive. But the problem is that the same emotional system that produces euphoria after a win will produce fear after a loss. You cannot selectively feel one without the other. If you allow yourself to feel excessive excitement when you win, you are guaranteeing that you will feel excessive anxiety when you lose. Both emotions pull you away from balance, and once balance is lost, objectivity disappears. Neutrality breaks this cycle by keeping both wins and losses emotionally equal, just data points within a larger process. Traders who last for decades have one thing in common: emotional detachment. They don't celebrate wins excessively or mourn losses deeply. To them, every outcome is part of a sequence, not an event. They see the market as a probability machine, not a personal judge of worth. That detachment allows them to execute without hesitation or fear. They can cut losses quickly because those losses carry no emotional weight. They can hold winners patiently because greed doesn't whisper in their ear. Neutrality gives them freedom, not the freedom to avoid emotion, but the freedom to not be ruled by it. Achieving emotional neutrality requires redefining the relationship between trading and identity. Most traders attach their self-worth to their results. When they win, they feel intelligent, capable, and confident. When they lose, they feel incompetent, unlucky, or even ashamed. This attachment makes every trade personal. It turns what should be a statistical exercise into an emotional battle. The market becomes a mirror reflecting the trader's self-esteem. Neutral traders break this link. They separate who they are from what happens in the market. They understand that a losing trade doesn't mean failure, just as a winning trade doesn't mean superiority. Both are outcomes, not identities. Another key to neutrality is preparation. Emotional responses often arise from uncertainty. When you don't know what you'll do if a trade moves against you, anxiety fills the gap. But when you have a plan for every possible outcome, entry, exit, stop, and target, there's nothing left to fear. The plan acts as an emotional buffer. It transforms chaos into structure. Every scenario is accounted for, and that predictability breeds calm. A trader who plans every action in advance doesn't need to make emotional decisions in the heat of the moment. They simply follow through on what they've already decided with a clear mind. Consistency in process builds emotional confidence. The more you follow your rules, the more trust you build in your system and in yourself. That trust slowly reduces emotional volatility. Fear arises when you don't trust your plan. Hope arises when you don't trust probability. Greed arises when you don't trust sufficiency. But when trust is built through repetition, emotion loses its leverage. The mind learns that following the process yields results over time. Even if individual trades fluctuate, this understanding anchors you emotionally. You stop reacting to the noise of the market because you've learned to focus on the signal of your edge. Neutrality is also a function of exposure. You can't become emotionally neutral by avoiding discomfort. You become neutral by experiencing discomfort repeatedly in small controlled doses until it no longer triggers a strong response. Every small loss you accept, every trade you execute calmly after a setback, strengthens your emotional resilience. This gradual desensitization rewires your brain's relationship with uncertainty. What once felt threatening becomes familiar. Familiarity reduces fear, and reduced fear creates neutrality. Over time, this emotional conditioning turns volatility into background noise instead of a psychological threat. Many traders mistake neutrality for indifference, but neutrality isn't apathy. It's awareness without reaction. A neutral trader is fully engaged, deeply focused, but emotionally balanced. They feel the movements of the market but remain unmoved by them. They see opportunity and risk clearly because their perception isn't tinted by emotion. This state of awareness allows them to recognize setups objectively, to act decisively, and to stay patient through dull periods without forcing trades. The absence of emotional distortion gives them the clarity to respond, not react. Emotional neutrality directly impacts performance through decision quality. When your emotions are under control, you can assess probability objectively. You're not afraid to take a loss because it doesn't threaten your ego. You're not desperate to make money because you understand that profit is a byproduct, not a goal. Every trade becomes an opportunity to execute well, not to prove something. This shift in perspective is what creates the smooth equity curves professionals are known for. Their results aren't spectacular on any given day, but they are consistent over years because their mindset doesn't fluctuate with the market. Neutrality also protects traders from external noise. The market is filled with distractions, news events, opinions, predictions, and emotional narratives. Each of these can trigger fear or greed if your emotional foundation is weak. But when you are neutral, you see through the noise. You understand that no external factor has power over your plan. You stop chasing headlines and start focusing solely on execution. This internal stillness gives you an advantage because most participants are reacting emotionally to stimuli. You've already filtered out one of the clearest signs of emotional neutrality is the ability to stop trading when necessary. The emotionally attached trader feels the need to always be in a position. They equate action with progress, but neutrality gives you patience. It allows you to wait for your edge without discomfort. You don't feel compelled to trade, you choose to trade. This self-control prevents overtrading and protects capital during uncertain conditions. The discipline to wait comes naturally when emotions no longer drive decisions. Long-term profitability emerges when trading becomes a process of repetition rather than reaction. Each decision made in neutrality compounds over time into consistency. The law of large numbers only works when actions are consistent, and actions are only consistent when emotions don't interfere. Neutrality keeps you aligned with your plan through winning streaks and losing streaks alike. It creates an emotional flat line where no single trade has the power to alter behavior. That emotional steadiness translates directly into financial steadiness. Traders who master neutrality eventually realize that profitability is not about beating the market. It's about not beating yourself. Every time you allow emotion to dictate behavior, you trade against your own best interest. Every time you remain neutral, you allow your edge to express itself fully. The market rewards that objectivity over time. Neutrality transforms trading from an emotional struggle into a rhythm. A rhythm built on patience, clarity, and unwavering consistency. Mastering position size equals mastering self-control. In trading, every decision is an opportunity to express discipline or emotion, order or chaos. The way a trader sizes a position reveals exactly who is in control, the rational planner or the impulsive ego. Most traders believe their downfall lies in bad analysis or poor timing, but more often it lies in the quiet, unnoticed act of overexposure. The decision to risk too much on a single trade is rarely about logic. It's about emotion, about the need to win quickly, to prove something, to recover from pain. Mastering position sizing is therefore not just a mathematical exercise. It is the highest expression of psychological mastery. It's the moment when you stop letting your emotions dictate your size and start letting your rules define your exposure. Self-control in trading begins with awareness. Every trader experiences temptation. After a winning streak, the urge to increase size comes naturally. Confidence turns into overconfidence, and the trader justifies it as pressing the advantage. After a loss, the same trader feels the pull to double down, to make back what was lost, convincing themselves it's logical. Both impulses are emotional disguises, hope and fear wearing the mask of reason. Position sizing exposes them immediately. The disciplined trader sizes based on structure, not emotion. They know exactly how much risk aligns with their edge, and they don't deviate no matter how strong the temptation feels. That consistency in size becomes a mirror of their self-control. When a trader truly understands position sizing, they stop thinking in terms of individual trades and start thinking in terms of probabilities. Each trade becomes just one event in a long series. The outcome of any single trade loses emotional meaning because no single position has the power to damage confidence or capital. This detachment creates freedom. Self-control is no longer a battle fought against impulse. It becomes a natural state of being. The trader no longer reacts to the market. They respond to it with measured precision. Position sizing turns chaos into structure, and that structure becomes the foundation of control. The undisciplined trader operates from emotional extremes. When they feel confident, they increase size recklessly. When they feel fearful, they reduce it drastically or stop trading altogether. This constant fluctuation destroys consistency. The edge that might have been profitable over time is rendered useless because the trader's size varies with mood. Self-control, expressed through fixed or strategically adaptive position sizing, removes that emotional interference. It creates stability across trades, ensuring that results are a reflection of strategy, not state of mind. The act of setting a proper position size before entering a trade forces the trader to think objectively. It demands that you define your risk tolerance before your emotions can interfere. It's a moment of pure logic, a contract between your rational mind and your future self. Once you commit to that size, you commit to emotional boundaries. You're saying, this is how much I'm willing to experience, win or lose. That decision, made consciously and consistently, builds a psychological habit of discipline. Every time you honor that decision, you strengthen your internal control system. Self-control in trading is not about suppressing emotion, but about structuring behavior so that emotion has no opportunity to dictate action. Position sizing is the mechanism that enforces that structure. You can't stop yourself from feeling fear or greed, but you can design a system that prevents those emotions from influencing your capital exposure. By defining size before the trade, you remove the emotional leverage point. Once the order is placed, there's nothing left to negotiate with your emotions. They've already been neutralized through structure. Mastering size also cultivates humility. It reminds you that no matter how confident you feel, every trade is uncertain. The market doesn't reward confidence. It rewards consistency. When you size properly, you accept that uncertainty. You give up the illusion of control over outcomes and focus on controlling what's real, your process. That surrender to probability is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the mindset of professionals who understand that their job is not to predict, but to manage exposure. Through that humility, self-control deepens because you stop fighting the market and start aligning with it. Every emotional mistake in trading, revenge trading over leveraging early exits, can be traced back to a breakdown in self-control. And every breakdown in self-control can be traced back to improper sizing. The moment your size is too large, your emotional threshold is breached, you stop thinking strategically and start thinking emotionally. Fear enters, hesitation appears, and your mind shifts from probability to survival mode. The trader who controls size never enters that state. They keep their risk so small that no trade has the power to destabilize their focus. This mental stability compounds into consistent performance over time. Position sizing also acts as a behavioral feedback system. When you notice the urge to adjust your size impulsively, it reveals your internal state. You can use that awareness to diagnose emotional imbalance. If you feel the need to risk more than your plan allows, it's not because the opportunity is better. It's because your mind is chasing validation. If you feel the need to risk less despite your plan, it's because fear is clouding your perspective. In both cases, self-control comes from recognizing the emotion and refusing to let it influence action. Your predetermined position size becomes a grounding mechanism, a constant that keeps your behavior anchored in logic, the discipline to maintain. Consistent size also builds trust in your edge. When you use different sizes for different trades, your results become inconsistent. And inconsistency breeds doubt. You start second-guessing your system, looking for reasons why performance fluctuates. But when size remains constant, every result becomes clean data. You can measure your edge objectively without emotional distortion. This clarity reinforces confidence, and that confidence strengthens self-control. The trader who trusts their data doesn't need to chase results. They just need to keep executing. Another aspect of mastering position size is understanding that control over money equals control over emotion. The market is a reflection of your psychological relationship with capital. If you feel the need to risk large amounts to feel excited, it means you're seeking emotional stimulation, not financial growth. Trading becomes entertainment rather than business. But when you treat each dollar as a soldier to be deployed strategically, you approach the market with respect. You learn patience, restraint, and precision. This respect for capital naturally translates into respect for your rules, and that is the essence of self-control. Position sizing is also what allows traders to scale safely. Growth without control is destruction disguised as progress. Many traders increase size too quickly after a few profitable months, believing they've leveled up. But unless emotional tolerance has grown in parallel, larger size simply magnifies emotional instability. Mastering position size means increasing exposure only when both your capital and your psychology are ready. This gradual evolution ensures that self-control expands with experience rather than being tested to breaking point. Ultimately, position sizing is the language of restraint. Every disciplined trader uses it to communicate with uncertainty. It's a statement of boundaries, a declaration that says, I will participate in this game, but on my terms. Those terms create order within chaos. The trader who respects size doesn't need to rely on willpower, they rely on structure. Every trade becomes an exercise in control, a reaffirmation of discipline. Over time, that discipline becomes identity. You no longer have to remind yourself to be disciplined, you simply are, because your process enforces it naturally. Mastering position size is mastering yourself. It's the process of aligning thought, emotion, and action under one rule. Control what you can, release what you can't. It's not about playing small. It's about playing smart. It's not about avoiding risk. It's about directing it. Each position becomes a reflection of balance, the balance between confidence and caution, between opportunity and protection, between freedom and restraint. In that balance lies true mastery, not just of trading, but of the mind that drives every trade.